I couldn't I? Try it. Might be helpful, somewhat helpful, but weird. Alrighty, good to see you all. Thank you for coming back, most of you. Anyways, we'll see what happens with the others. Today we're going to talk about what is religion itself. Does the word mean? What is the concept, this thing that we're talking about? Because not everybody knows. Even some people have PhDs. What if I put that on there? I did, but I'll skip over that. So I made this picture just to kind of illustrate it. You know, in this postmodern world, you have, well, there's a famous story which comes from a religion, Jainism. It's a small religion from India. The story about, I forget how many blind men, but something like 3 blind men holding on to part of an elephant. And the story, the moral of the story is that's kind of like how reality is and truth is. There's a truth, but we're all like blind men grasping one part of it, and we all describe it differently. You know, like one blind man holds the tail and thinks it's a rope. Another blind man or a blind woman, we shouldn't be, sorry, I'm not trying to be chauvinistic. Blind woman holds the ear and thinks it's a cloth or something, you know, and hopefully that's as far as it goes with blind men. Yeah, all right. Anyway. And you know, yeah, I think it's white, I think it's black, I think it's gray. You know, we live in a postmodern world where, well, people would, where even with postmodern thought would even deny that there's the blue elephant. There's nothing. I'm grabbing onto nothing. Okay, but it's kind of like what we're doing with the word religion, or with any concept that we talk about when we try to actually define something. So if you see an event or you see something, how do you know whether it's religious or not? What do you think? If you see, for example, Mr. Whitehawk, a football game. Yes, the playoffs, and the Eagles did well, and they won their playoff game, right? Yeah. How do you know that wasn't a religious event?
So I would say it is.
Okay. Why do you say it is? What's your standard?
It's believe in a certain outside group that unites people in common traditions.
Okay. What do you believe? What are you believing in?
He was the best team.
Okay. Then what's the point of the opposition?
Yeah, strength any. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because you find a lot of people look at religion that way. Ours is the best religion, yes? And other religions are there to bring us down, you know, so we have to convert them or do other things or fight them, which is kind of what's going on in a sporting event, at least in football. It's kind of a fight in a way, at least certain, you know. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. It's something that unites a group of people. Is there prayer involved? I mean, is there any supernaturalism to it, or is it just a natural?
I think there's a lot of superstition with it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that a lot of when the group does come together, there's a lot of prayer in the form of chants, songs.
I've noticed that they started doing almost like they're imitating the soccer crowds.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of soccer type style chants, and because I watch a lot of English League soccer. Leicester City, they stink. Anyways. But yeah, so you got a lot of chanting. Okay, you sing songs too. People sing songs. I'd say there is some praying. I mean, I see some of the players pray before the game or after the game. Someone gets hurt or taking me. I'm assuming they're praying. They're not just taking a rest. It's like, okay, Bob broke his neck. Let's, let's take a rest. No, they're probably. I think they're praying. But what about when the game's over? I mean, does it have any quality after that? I mean, once the game is settled, the score is settled, what does that mean in the larger scheme? Does it mean anything for someone who doesn't follow football? I mean, does it mean anything for the world? I mean, does it bring about a ceasefire in Gaza or something? Or end the Russo-Ukrainian war? Mr. Belfield?
I just feel like a lot of sports fans, once the season ends, they just go to a different sport. So it's kind of like, that's not, they just feel like, I guess they go back to it, but it's nothing out of sight, out of mind.
Interesting.
Like, oh, on to the next thing to,
Almost like your church hopping in a way.
it's not like church's seasons end.
Well, that's true, yeah. If you're going to with a religion, there's an exclusivity, they have a connection or a grasp on you that, you're always coming to the synagogue, the mosque, the church, If you're going, if you're going to a mosque and then you go to a Mormon chapel, people at the mosque will be like, aren't you Muslim? Haven't you submitted to God? You're a Muslim, Muslima, what are you going with hanging with the Latter-day Saints? Reading from the Book of Mormon and all this other stuff. Praying prayers to a different God, apparently. Interesting. Although I would assume, sir, that as an Eagles fan, you would not show up to, like a Giants.
Never.
No, that's that. No. Let them burn.
Couldn't drag my dead corpse.
Well, there's some people that feel that way about religion. Which makes religion interesting. So yeah, I would say though, in my opinion, well, anyway, let's go to other things. But what do you think? Sports, not just football, but any other sport, baseball or hockey, whatever, basketball. How do you know that, or not even a sport? If you go, people congregate for all sorts of things. You go to a concert to see someone, Beyonce, Taylor, whatever, or whatever. That's people congregating. There's a person leading the show. They're singing. There's lights going off, and techno pyrotechnics and smoke and stuff like that. Well, you might not get much smoke in a Catholic church anymore, but they used to have a lot of sense. But if you go to like a Hindu temple or a Buddhist temple, you might get smoke all over the place and burning incense. Is that religious necessarily? I mean, people cry. I mean, like my niece went to a Taylor Swift show. Taylor Swift? No, it was what's his name? Harry Styles from One Direction, and well, now he's not in One Direction, and crying. But she's very emotional. But she cries over anything. But she's been crying for seeing this person. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you don't see that at church on Sunday when people come in and see like Jesus on the cross. You get out the cell phone. We started yet? Right? No, at least this Harry Styles coming up, and tears streaming down their cheeks. Is that religious? Certainly has an effect. Why not, Mr. Chapman?
I say like they should have like a higher social standard. Like people like me, like they can praise me, and like some people praise for the idol, but they're not praying to them or praying for them. That makes sense.
Okay. So they're not worshiping them, is what you're saying? They're not. Well, what is worship? I mean, if they're showing this honor to the person. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, if Harry Styles came off the stage into the crowd, do you think like he'd have any clothes left or his hair on his head after that? People might be ripping stuff off and something on eBay favorites. But any rock star has stories of fans trying to rip clothing off, pieces of hair, all sorts of stuff from their very bodies. Why? Well, they're just human beings, aren't they? I mean, they're.
It's an obsession.
Okay. But I mean, I got you, sir. But if you're able to get the shirt or scarf that Beyonce, wore at her concert, she throws into the crowd. I got the scarf. Anything special about that? It's a scarf.
Me personally, no, because like, I don't have no preconception with the role in the word, so I want to know what those almost like crazy things.
However, Mr. Chapman, whatever it is, if it's important of back to the baby Jesus, Bethlehem. You go into a church, and there it is, the relic of Jesus' swaddling clothes. Whether the Santa Claus is out. Is that the same thing that's going on? Is, Don St. throws me a scarf?
Like that's like in old scriptures, like they got history to it.
History.
Long term.
Long-term history. Okay, so there's age to it, not just modern. I'm sorry, Mr. Belfield, I went long on that. What did you?
I was gonna say, when you said worship, like when people worship God, they kind of like they have like it's not like an obsession where it's like I just love you because of what you do. It's more like well, wording's weird, but like I feel like people are looking for something out of it. Like they're looking for like a direction, or they're looking for like something to get out of it. Whereas I think when you're just a fan, you're obsessed. It's kind of like you might, dress like them or like do things that they do, like a celebrity, but I feel like you're not looking at them like as like a savior type thing or like a guide.
Okay, no, you're not. You're not expecting like what's his name? Scott can talk about Josh Allen, right? Not expecting him to show up with cancer ward and like heal the kids. Something. But the NFL still might send him to the cancer ward to see the kids. What does that do for them? It doesn't take away their cancer. It doesn't kill the person. So what's in fact, they'll probably do that, I got you, rather than sending for a priest. Why not send for a priest to give the kid the anointing of the sick or something, or the sacrament? Or have a rabbi come pray over them.
I feel like it should have, if they did have a rabbi or someone come and pray for them, they're hoping that that prayer would fix them, whereas like if it's a celebrity, they're just hoping to get them like happy.
Now, how is that person a celebrity? But I got you. Okay, I got you. Okay, because this one thing, because that was an interesting point. How do you distinguish between, say, the local chaplain at the hospital, priest, imam, whatever? That's not a celebrity, but say Josh Allen is showing up to see the sick people. Why is it religious if the priest steps through the door to the cancer ward and is saying, hi, how are you? You're doing well, to treat you, blah, blah. But, Josh Allen shows up, a football player says, hi, how you doing? You're doing well with your treatments. And he might even say, I'll say a prayer for you. But he's not a religious figure.
I guess that's, but also I feel like, well, I guess he could too. I was gonna say like a priest would devote their life to like following God, and like a lot of people would say like, oh, that's God speaking to them. But I guess that could be not telling to say like, oh, I've been following God.
Look at it. I'm sorry, Miss.
No, it's okay. I feel like we're now and like the present while we're living, but I also feel like religion's also about like after you pass away, like where do you go? Like I feel like a celebrity, we don't think that it's not like, a celebrity's gonna in the afterlife, if we worship them now, we're gonna go somewhere in the afterlife, but that's what religion is. It's like believing something in the afterlife, we go somewhere.
Okay, let's hope.
So, yeah. But
I hope. No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, yeah, so it's just kind of, people worship celebrities and envy them and whatever, but I also, it's not religious based where it's like after we die, there's something beyond that. It's not like I look at a celebrity and I'm like, oh, okay, like if I believe in them, I'm gonna go here or there after I die. Like but then when I think of religion, I think of afterlife.
Although I would say, and I think that's a good point, I think you're onto something there that I would agree with as well, because, and this was a point I was making, not to offend you, Mr. Whitehawk, I'm not gonna, but if, once a football game or a soccer match or a basketball, once it's over, it's over. It doesn't, they put the records in the record book. Okay, if the team wins, in the case of the playoffs, they move on to the next level. If they don't win, then they're going to go home. But, you know, it's over. It's in the record books. It doesn't affect the rest of the world, really. It doesn't have maybe a transcendent value. I think that's what you are what you were getting at. I think. But that might be something that religion is not just encompassing the world that we live in, but it also affects another world that we might go to or come from. Interesting. I think that might be the distinguishing feature, transcendence. Because even on the planet, you know, some people don't know anything about baseball or American football or rugby or, speaking of sports, or they don't know anything about celebrities, you know? Now, I got you, Mr. Chapman, but I'm just riffing for a second. You know, like one of the things I love about being older and kind of checking out in a lot of ways is, you know, they always show me people on TV and it's like, you know, this is so-and-so who's in this show, and like I'm supposed to know who it is, you know, and oh, didn't you hear everyone's talking about what she wore, and I have no idea who these people are, and it's wonderful. I love it. I could care less, though, you know, it's like, why? Why should I care that so-and-so is doing this or thinks this or whatever? But people do care. What are you gonna say, Mr. Chapman?
Say, I think religion is like guide with life. So if you have a bigger celebrity, I feel like if you follow them, how would it affect your life? Determine the one you have affected. Like, well, if you have like a bigger impact, that's if you follow the set religion way. I say you have a traditional celebrity or 15, not really doesn't.
Okay. Like if you don't go to every football game, you know, they don't tell you you're gonna go to hell, basically. Or you might not be with the football gods at the end of your life, or you're not worthy to come back as a single. Yeah, and it's probably.
I was just gonna say, I think the problem is religion, there comes a lot of patience, and that's why a lot of people turn away from it. So when it comes to celebrities and sports games, there's an instant reaction that happens. Like somebody hits a home run, happens in the moment, then when you pray, you don't get a reaction anyway. That's why it's steers a lot of people away from religion, which is why some of the people turn to idolizing sports players and celebrities and Beyonce's art, as opposed to randomly going through their life and living their life through their religion.
However, Ms. Crumpton, you were down in, say, like West Virginia, and you went to a snake handling church, you know, and they say, bring out the snakes! And they got the snakes, because Jesus said, you know, you'll be in the Gospel of Mark, you'll be able, if you're my follower, you'll be able to hold the snakes, and you won't get hurt and stuff. So they bring out poisonous snakes, and hey, jumping up and down, and maybe they get bit, but that's great, because they're going to show you they're not going to die, you know, because they have the power of Jesus. That's kind of showmanship, right? Like Beyonce's scar.
But that's through, like, their gospel and what they believe.
Okay. No,
It's like Beyonce just singing.
okay. Interesting. But I would say that there is some theatricalism even in religion. Some showmanship. I mean, like in the old days, they used to carry the Pope around on their shoulders, you know, on a big chair. Pope's up there. Which was for like maybe so people could see the Pope and maybe for protection as well. We don't do that anymore. Okay. Well, all right. Fine. I just wanted to get you thinking about some things. How would you define religion? How would you recognize religion from something else? Okay. From just any other meeting. You go to a meeting here on campus, student government, or some club that you're a member of, you know, you're meeting together in a group, you're talking, might even be giving a prayer in some cases, or like an allegiance or something, like board meetings and stuff like that. And that's similar to some worship services. Maybe you go to a Christian church, a Baptist church or something, you all come together, there's a person, a leader, you know, you might have a little prayer, and then the person talks to you for an hour and talks about the Bible or whatever their text is. Okay? Why is one religious and one isn't? We might say, because you're talking about God and supernatural entities, maybe. Okay, but that's the subject matter. Are the actions necessarily religious? Okay. Sometimes they seem to overlap. What makes the actions not religious? Well, maybe they don't have a transcendent value. Once the meeting clears up, the meeting's over with. You put the minutes in, the minutes are printed, and that's it. You move on. Whereas if you go to, say, the temple or something, you believe that it has an eternal value. You know, your prayers are sent up to a god or something, or to another realm, or you're offering a sacrifice that's sent up to another realm, and it has effects even for the universe. Whereas, you know, if the Phillies win the World Series, the universe doesn't, I don't think it's, maybe I shouldn't say this, because I don't think the universe cares. You know, even though it doesn't matter to the working of the universe. But if I commit a sin or something, kill somebody or tell a lie or something, that I might believe that has cosmic ramifications. Can even screw up the cosmos. So it has maybe a transcendent value that just another certain thing like a sport or concert, you know, which might affect people very greatly, even emotionally, but doesn't have really transcendent value. Okay. Well, I just wanted to go over this because this is, you know, whether something's religious or not, or what religion is a matter of debate amongst religious studies scholars. All right. Nowadays, a lot of religious studies scholars are unsure, even if they can if I can define what religion is. This is a picture of, does anyone know who this is? Anyone know who this is? Anybody? No? Well, you never know. Jim Jones. Anyone ever hear of Jim Jones? The Reverend Jim Jones? Reverend Jim Jones? No? Anyways, he founded a church. Now I can't remember the name of the church. The Temple of, the People's Temple. There's a longer name. It was like the Christian Church. I think it was churches associated with the Churches of Christ. But it is commonly known as the People's Temple. He was Reverend Jim Jones. He founded, I think, in San Francisco. Excuse me. Anyways, and he did all sorts. And he became quite famous. You know, he was known as a great preacher. He would do healing. Yeah, go ahead, Miss Crumpton. A what? Yes, a cult leader. Well, you know, the cult is in the eyes of the beholder, Miss Crumpton. When does a religion? When is a religion a cult, and when is it just a religion? Well, he didn't kill them, not directly. It was a form of, what did he call it? It was suicide, but it wasn't killing. It was, maybe it'll come to me. It was a form of protest. They all committed, he and his followers committed suicide in protest. But in the beginning, you know, he's looks dressed like a minister, right? Does he look? Well, you nod your head, but how do you know? So what does that mean? If I put a red or a purple scarf around my neck or wore a purple tie, does that make me a minister or something? I mean, you go to places like Saudi Arabia, places in the Middle East, part of the cultural dress that men walk around in long white robes like this. Are they ministers? Christian ministers? Yes, Mr. Belfield.
I've only seen it where it's like they have a black clothes and then like a white thing on the collar, but
I don't think he dressed like that in pictures I've seen with him. I've never seen him wear that kind of collar, but he could have. Yes, again, but wearing a black shirt with a white, little piece of plastic in the collar. But anyone could wear that. What makes it religious? Yes, priests will wear it as a uniform, but I could wear it on Halloween. Does that suddenly make me a priest? Or if I dress up like a police officer, all of a sudden I'm able to pull people over and write out my own tickets? Which I hope not, because you might not like my penalties. Don't worry, I'm lenient. I'm a lenient judge. Well, anyways, he founded his own church. He even healed people. He was known for healing, brought people in wheelchairs that couldn't walk. He would pray over them, they'd jump right up, walk again so that he could perform miracles. All sorts of things. Of course, the person in the wheelchair was like the church secretary, who could in fact walk, but was, helping, shilling for him. He did that. But there was a reason why he did that. He wasn't being deceptive in a way. In a way, he was, I guess. But he was an atheist. He didn't believe there was a God, and he was a socialist. He was a Marxist. He believed in socialist and in communism. Karl Marx, Lenin, all that good stuff. But he wanted an easier way or a more palatable way to get his Marxist message across to people. And he thought that if we put it in the trappings of religion, people are more prone to listen to me. But he had no belief in Jesus or the Bible. He'd preach about Jesus every Sunday. But he'd just, preach about Jesus in the context of communist theory and Marxist theory of economics. At one point in his church, he said, you think I believe in this? He held up the Bible and he threw it down the main aisle on the floor. He says, look, it's just a book. I don't believe in that. And he said, and people knew it too. People in the congregation. Some people believed he actually could do healings and stuff like that. They believed the shtick. But it was kind of like professional wrestling. There are people in the crowd who are were always in on the game. They appreciated the art. And they appreciated what he was doing, They knew he was an atheist, that he didn't believe in any religion. But he was using religion as a prop, or at least the props of religion, one might say, to preach his message. And yes, eventually he got in trouble with the government, and so he and a whole bunch of his people just decided they were being persecuted, and they went down to a country named Guyana in South America, and they went into the jungle and formed their own little community where they were living. He still got kind of harassed by the U.S. government. We sent congressmen down there to investigate them because people said they were being held against their will. I don't know if they were. Some people said they did want to leave, but they didn't feel comfortable leaving. Okay, fine. But what happened was some of his followers went and killed the congressmen when they went and shot them at the airport. And so that, kind of knew that there was going to be a problem. That you went and did. He didn't tell them to do it, He didn't. Jones did not tell them to do that. They did it on their own, apparently. But he's like, now I can't do anything. The U.S. government has got a blank check against us. They can come and round us all up. So we will have, that's right, revolutionary suicide. They're never going to stop persecuting us. The only way we can end their control over us is to all die. And so he did. He killed himself. He shot himself. And then everyone else drank poison, about 900 people. And they all just lay. And this is on the internet. We have, because he taped everything. So we have the tape of his final talk with his people where they're deciding what to do. And then they start passing out the drink, the drink with the drug in it, the poison in it. And you can hear people dying in the background, starting to die as he's still talking. Yeah. Was it a religion? Interesting. Was he religious? People thought he was, but those who knew him, we have his phone conversations with people where he talks about being an atheist, and I'm using this as a shtick to get my message across. He was open about it, at least on the telephone when he didn't think he was being recorded by the government. Nevertheless. So we're not sure. Some religious studies, I think I know what religion is, but some religious studies people do not. People like this guy, very famous, he's now dead, may he rest in peace, but Jonathan Z. Smith, famous religious studies scholar. The Z stands for Zettel. And in his book, Imagining Religion, did I put that up on? I didn't put it up on PowerPoint, but he wrote a book called Imagining Religion. Okay. 1982 is when he wrote that book. And he talks about religion. His argument is that religion really is just a category. It's just something that was created by Western academics, by the Western Academy, Western thinkers, to classify cultural artifacts of human existence. Okay? When, especially during colonization, when European countries colonized parts of the globe and they encountered other cultures and what we might call religions, they needed a word to say, well, what is this? How do we distinguish this from this from this? And so they just said, okay, well, these practices we'll call religion, because that makes sense to us as Westerners. Not thinking that that concept might not make any sense to the people they're applying it to, as we'll see in a few moments, hopefully. Okay, so I mean, there's some point to what he's saying about, they needed to have a word, but it's not like the word wasn't there already. I mean, the word religion, as we'll see, has, pretty long pedigree, goes back to the ancient Rome and stuff like that. The word was around, but there is some, I want to say point, but that's not really the word I want to use, but that's the word I can use. But he does have some kind of a point that the word religion didn't necessarily, they kind of tried to shoehorn religions into their Western idea of what a religion was. But he didn't believe it had any existence on its own. It was just a term that doesn't really mean anything. This was a textbook I used once previously in a world religions class. Patterns of religion, which I don't use anymore. It's boring. It's basically all text and no pictures, nothing, and it's boring. And I didn't want to read it, so I wasn't going to have you read from it. But anyways, Paul Meyer. Oh, excuse me. No, that's Paul Meyer. The editors of the textbook. You see all the editors' names there. They basically come out and say there's no such thing as religion in general. There's really no such thing as religion. Hence, we decided to call our textbook that we want you to use in your religious studies course, Patterns of Religion. It's like, okay, patterns of something that doesn't exist, Patterns of Bigfoot. Why not, Well, no, I don't want to offend the squatchers out there. I'm not saying Bigfoot doesn't exist. It's just we don't have all the evidence in yet, okay? You need to find a few more blurry pictures and misidentified hairs. I got to make my own fun. This Prinzio? Okay, good. It's getting there. Then this was another book I used, Introduction to Religious Studies. I don't use it anymore. Wasn't a bad book. Paul Meyer. And basically, but you get the same kind of attitude or same kind of answer. He says that, in Intro to Religious Studies, that religious studies is more a study of humanity, human activities. Forget about the supernatural. All that stuff you hear about gods and spirits and religions. Forget about that. They all mean something else. They mean what human societies do or believe about themselves, and they call them religious. Or it might be even a scholar's own self-understanding. This is what I think is religious. And so I call these things that I see in, this culture, Polynesian culture in the Pacific Islands, I call it religious because it's what I think might be religious or something. Again, there might be some truth to that. But, he ends up saying that no definition of religion will be given in the book or is even encouraged to be given. Don't even try to define it. Again, okay. I'm like, so, all right. Why am I having people buy your textbook then? Like if I was teaching an intro to biology and the textbook is like, well, we don't really believe you can know what a cell is. So we don't talk about it. We don't even ask you to talk about it because no one can really know what a cell is. Like, okay, what? I think I'll look on Amazon for, a biology textbook where they do think they know what a cell is. They know what their topic is. It's like, I mean, you take some science courses here, taking a psychology course. We really don't believe that there's mental illness, but, we're going to teach you how to treat it. If you actually do stumble across it one day, there really is no thing called mental illness. It's just a word that we use to define just normal behavior that we think is not what I would do. That's what mental illness is. It's not what I would do. Why am I spending money on these credit hours? I mean, this is ridiculous in a way, I think. I hate to be harsh about it, but I think I have to be able to cut in order to heal because, how can you write books on religious studies or religion or be a famous religious studies scholar and say, well, we don't know the topic of what we're studying? What other field does this? It's not just shooting yourself in the foot. It's like shooting yourself in the head. There's no, you're over, these are eggheads that are overthinking themselves out of existence because, colleges and universities are also businesses to a certain extent. They have business managers, and, the bean counters are going to start asking, well, what do we need a whole religious studies department for with all these professors that we're paying money to salaries when you don't know what you're teaching? Is it anthropology? Is it sociology? Is it a form of psychology? Well, you can't figure it out. So, all right, well, we'll just all collapse. We'll get rid of your department. We'll keep a few of you. We'll fire the rest or buy you out. And we'll just collapse your department into like anthropology or cultural anthropology studies. And you specifically look at religion. Other cultural anthropologists might look at language or other things, gender issues, whatever. You look at religion. We don't need a whole department for you because it's a waste of money because you don't even know what you're studying. So they're like out thinking themselves out of a job in a way. But I think that just because I don't agree with this, I'm just telling you this is what's going on and still going on to a certain extent in religious studies. Just because a category was created to identify something, okay, and as I said, like Jonathan C. Smith has a point, that Western academics encountered these cultural things and they wanted to classify them, what types of things these are. This is economics, this is history, this is such, and this is sociology, society, this is religion. Okay, but that doesn't mean there wasn't something there to identify in the first place. I mean, if you study the thing and you look at the details and you see certain commonalities, there's always like a supernatural element, gods and spirits. There's some kind of governing text that, people think comes from the supernatural world and governs your life. Okay, that seems different from economics or the study of music in a culture. Okay, which also these things might segue or connect up with religious ideas too. But you can, you can study like music from Europe in the Middle Ages, and a lot of it's religious music. So you're just going to have to encounter the religious ideas. But you don't have to be religious to study the music and how it's written and how it was, changed. But the religious aspect is part of it. And you don't necessarily have to be religious to study religion either, but it helps that you have a similar mindset. It might increase your interest. So, going back to my example of music, musicology, which is the study of music, that's also a Western academic creation. There was music before. People were, blowing into pipes and flutes and banging drums and, knocking rocks together from time immemorial, I would assume. It seems to always have been there in every culture. But, musicology, the study of music, its theory, its history, its development, that is also a creation of the Western Academy, the Western universities. Right? But no one argues that, music doesn't really exist. It's just a word we created to describe the sound energy that comes to our ears and is created by certain instruments. But there's really no thing as music. No one says that. So I don't know why it applies to say something like religion, or that you can't define music, because music is so different from culture to culture. That's another argument. You go, the religion is so different from culture to culture. Hindu religion is not like, their conception of religion is not the same as, say, Western Christian idea of religion, which is true. That's fine. But also their music is not the same as well. And you can see all examples on the internet, Remember, I found a video a long time ago of some person using a sitar to play heavy metal music. Can you play heavy metal on a sitar? Yes, you can. This person, I don't know how they learned it, but it's kind of cool. Playing like, whatchamacallit, Metallica on a sitar, which is a Hindu musical instrument, kind of like a guitar. But you play it lying down. You don't really hold it like a guitar. You play it lying down. It's beautiful. But it's very different. But we know it's music. We can define it. And I would say that definitions are a good thing. To say, for example, like Meyer does in his textbook on religious studies, that, well, religion, we don't even encourage that. Well, I encourage it. I use a lot of definitions you'll find in this course. I think definitions are good things because definio, they set a limit. Can things be all outside the limit? Of course they can. You cannot see it integrate stuff into the limit? Yes. So they'll find things that are outside the box. But when you have the box of some sort, that's when you can start categorizing, like, this goes in the box. These all seem to relate to each other. They go, God bless you, Miss, keeping me humble. And then these are not. These are definitely not in the box. Or these are related to the box. So our language doesn't become sloppy. Not everything is religious. Well, in some cultures, everything is religious. But I think, I'd say not everything is religious. Not everything is music. Not everything is politics. Right? Some people think that they are. Okay, that's fine. We can disagree on that or agree to disagree. But, I think that definitions are tools. If we recognize them as tools, that there's something to help us and they're not getting in the way, that they are tools to linguistic and conceptual behavior. They're for organizing our language and how we think. Not to control necessarily how we think. I think that's what people like Smith are worrying about, that religion was used as a form of control. Another form of colonization to control the people of Asia or to control Africa by using this word religion. If we see it more as a tool, I think that's a more useful way to see it. Because it brings order and consistency and clarity to just our unreflective thoughts. Like when I asked you what religion, I could have asked you, what is time? What is time? Who wants to read this from a man named Augustine of Hippo? Saint Augustine of Hippo, if you're a Christian. He was a good and holy man. But Augustine of Hippo, he lived in North Africa, modern day, I think it's in Algeria, would have been in Algeria today. He was writing in an autobiography, first true autobiography in human literature called The Confessions, where he talks about his journey from not being a Christian to being a believer in Christianity. But that's neither here nor there. And throughout the book, he talks about a whole bunch of other things. And in one case, he talks about the question of time. Don't tell me, because I know what I want to say, but what's the first letter of your last name? F? Fennell? No, Miss Fennell's over here somewhere, right? Jeremy Fennell? Maybe. Yeah, Miss Fennell. I apologize. F. Not Fufana, Miss Fufana. Frigid? No, not Miss Frigid. I'm sorry, Miss Francis. Okay, sorry, man. Okay, thank you, Miss Francis. What's the second class? I'll hopefully get that. Go ahead, Miss Francis.
The whole thing?
Oh, yes.
For what is time? Who can easily and briefly explain it? Who even in thought can comprehend it? But what in speaking do we refer to more familiarly and knowingly than time? And certainly we understand when we speak of it. We understand also when we hear it spoken of by another. What then is time? If no one asks of me, I know it. I know. If I wish to explain to him who asks, I know not.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Miss Frigid, where are you? Oh, you were here, right? Where's she asking? Frigid? Okay, let's work something like that. Let's see if I can. Fix it from the sir. I know who you are, sir. Kind of there. Mr. Vital. Yes, so I got Mr. Vital. All right, Mr. Vital. What is time? Every day is time. Okay. What do you mean by that? Why did you say it? You know what time it is, right? Okay. Time, so like saying time is time and just time? Time has passed. Well, what do you mean by that? If Mr. Vitale says time has passed, what does that mean, time has passed? Is time in the physical location, that it passes you by, that it physically moves past you? So is time physical? Material? So, oh, it's a measurement. Measurement of what?
So,
Itself. Time measures itself. Interesting. I'm not sure how to deal with that. Time measures itself. It's its own definition. It's almost like saying time, just simply saying time is time. So does that get us anywhere? Does that get us any closer to what time actually is? Oh, so it's a mystery. It's mysterious. Something we can't explain. Then where did we come up with this concept of something we can't explain? If I can't conceptualize it, I can't tell you what it is, why would I even have this idea in my mind? You knew what time the class was, right? You showed up. Why did you even come here at a certain time? Why didn't you show up, I don't know, at 9 a.m. or 3 a.m. or yesterday? Time is its own definition, then you're always on time. You're always on time because it's its own definition. I think this is time for the class. I don't, so I wasn't there then. I'm here now. Go ahead, sir.
You like the measure of like events or like,
What's an event? You would have to define what an event is.
well, I guess, maybe not that then, because like 3 o'clock is not the measure of an event. I guess it's, I don't know, I think that.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Yeah, no, you're testing your idea. You decided the idea wasn't working for you, so take it back. That's fine. Yes, Ms. Don't tell me. Oh, I think. No, I know it's not that. Right, I know what it is. Hold on a second. Oh. Ah, darn it. No, it's still not there. I'm sorry, Miss. Your last name is Hedgepeth. Sorry, Miss Tagan. Okay, so I remember your first name, but Hedgepeth. Okay. Go ahead, Miss Hedgepeth. A calculator? Okay, in what way?
see what's out. How we describe our being.
Measures. And what is time measured of? Events, good. Okay. Then we get back to my question to Mr. Belfield. What is an event? Yes.
No,
A day? All right. What's a day?
that's time.
Yeah, it's the time it takes for our Earth to rotate on its axis. So we're still getting back to time, how long it takes, and how long. Was there time before there was stuff? Before the Big Bang? Is there time before that? Around 13.8 billion years ago, a singularity erupted, like a balloon. And everything just was there. Started, popped out. Well, not exactly developed. Stars had to be created in galaxies. But all the elements were there. And all the matter was already there. Even us were already there. We just didn't develop yet. Was there time before that, what do you think, Mr. Belfield?
Think about that, but maybe it's like an idea of like the idea that there's an order to things happening. Because you can't go like well, I assume you can't go back in time and remember, but you also can't really change the order of things happening.
Okay, that's interesting. Except maybe you can. Einstein called it spooky actional distance. You can mess with something at a subatomic level here, and it messes with some atom over there. So he called it spooky. He's going to explain how that could be. Okay. Interesting to think about, I think. The point is, as Augustine said almost 1,500 years ago, I use this word, I know this concept, I can recognize it when I encounter it, and yet if you actually ask me, I can talk about it, right, through thought. But when you then ask me, well, what is this? I get a brain freeze. Yeah, what is this? Time is probably an element of space. Once you have the Big Bang and you have the eruption of matter, then you have time. Because you have movement and you have space. And so time is kind of a measurement of, say it, don't spray it up here. A measurement of space in a way. The space is moving around, you know. When I say space, I don't mean like space, I mean just like, you know, space, this kind of space. Stuff is moving around. And so we use it as a form of measurement. But no, there probably was no time per se before the Big Bang. It would be meaningless because there was no matter yet. That's why space and time are kind of two sides of the same coin. And who knows, Mr. Belfield, if time can bend, which it can, especially when it goes very, very fast, like the speed of light. If space can bend, as it can when light bends space, then maybe you can bend time. Possible. But it's a theory. My point is this. We can know that time exists. We can know what it is when someone speaks of it, even if we have difficulty defining it. The fact that it's difficult to define, and religious studies scholars, people with PhDs, have difficulty defining it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means there are aspects of it that are not understood, that are mysterious, like Ms. Prumpton was saying. She didn't say mysterious, but anyways, same idea, okay? So it doesn't mean we shouldn't try to define it, which I'm going to try to do, by talking about what it looks like. Definitions, I think, are good things, as I've been saying. I mean, what's a definition of a definition? Definio, I already told you, means to set boundaries. So something which explains the meaning of a word or term. Okay, when you say word, finis means boundary, a limit. So it explains what the meaning is. So it sets the boundary of what a word means, which again is just a concept. Word. I mean, what is a word? Can you see a word? Can you see the words when they come out of my mouth? Which they don't, clearly. Sound energy is coming out of my mouth, no words, actually. But we use that word, right? So we define things, defines what these concepts up here that we're thinking about mean. And I think that religion does exist. Religion exists. We can see it. We can see it. In that first picture that came down, there's a professor. He gave me permission to use this picture. He put it on his website. He traveled to India, and he was allowed to participate in an offering given to Ganesh, who is, can't really tell from the slide, it's a little too bright, but the elephant-headed god. He's a little boy with an elephant head. We'll talk more about him when we get to Hinduism, because it's kind of an interesting story. How did he get an elephant head? All right, well, anyways. And they're offering fire, and they're putting, paste or kind of what you would call powder paste on the on the image to honor it and stuff like that. Okay. Well, I would say, if I ask somebody, is this religious? Clearly it's religious. Look at it. You don't even have to define it. Look at it. Experience somehow tells you. You see this guy dressed up, and he's laying hands on another guy who's dressed up. Okay? Again, this is the Pope, by the way, Pope Francis. But regardless, I could dress up as a bishop. I do on St. Nicholas's Day, December 6th. I'd come to class dressed up as St. Nicholas, a bishop. I'm not a bishop. But how do you recognize me as a religious figure and not, say, a firefighter or a soldier, wearing a uniform? How is what he's doing, he puts his hand on his head, how's that religious? Which makes that religious? This is from Japan. This is a ceremony that happens usually in springtime, where grass is bound up and bundled up into, a big loop, a hoop is what I'm looking for, a hoop. It's part of the native Japanese religion, which is called Shinto, the way of the spirits, or the way of the gods. Shinto, to means a way. Shin is another word for spirits or God. So it's the way of the gods of Japan. And people walk through this grass hoop in a figure 8. They have the grass hoop set up. There's the Shinto priest. Well, how would you know? You got some guy wearing a hat with a top on. And they have the hoop, and you walk through the hoop, and you kind of make like a figure 8. Walk through the hoop again, it's like figure skating. If you ever watch figure skating, they skate in a big figure 8. So you have to walk through this hoop in a certain formalized way. You can't just walk through it, and that's okay. Whoops, sorry. You have to even do it in a certain way. So many human cultures, I think, without even being able to maybe name it, recognize that there seem to be certain ideas or activities that do resemble each other. These are very different cultures. This is Indian culture. This is Western culture. You could say Italian culture if you want. This is Japanese culture. So totally different areas of the world, and they're doing things that seem to resemble each other, even though you can tell they're very different. Even the way they look and their practices are very different. They have a family resemblance, a network of overlapping similarities that I can say, oh, as soon as I see it, I know that is religious. Just like Mr. Whitehawk, if you saw something, I don't know, if you saw a cricket match from India, you would know it's a sport. You would recognize it immediately. Even though they're all dressed up differently, they have implements, they have bats and they have helmets and all sorts of stuff, similar to football in some ways, maybe without the bats. They haven't introduced that yet. Maybe the NFL Rules Committee will use them like the lacrosse players beat each other. Yes. Well, no, because they don't want concussions, right? They don't want concussions. We'll see. Anyways, but still, like the same thing with the sports analogy, you recognize it. There's something there. And I would say that many, if not most, human cultures recognize that there is something in the universe, a transcendent thing, call it a supernatural force, that they interact with. And we can call this religion in a way, or we could call this religion. I would say that transcendence is probably one of the main defining characteristics between, say, a religion and anything else. Can other things be religious in a certain way? Yeah, politics, for example, like when you had the Nazi Party in Germany or other fascist governments in Italy, or dictatorships like in North Korea, where they were quasi-religious or are quasi-religious in certain ways. Like in North Korea, I've never gone there, but I've seen videos on YouTube of people who have traveled there. I don't think Americans are allowed to travel there anymore, but there was a brief period. They were talking about and showing video of their experience. there are all sorts of rules about the leader, Kim Jong-un, and his family, who are not gods, but are kind of worshipped like gods in certain ways. Like you have to bow to their images and to their statues. If you ever show an image of one of them, they would take like a picture of a statue, and you have to take a picture of the whole statue, all of them. You can't just say, "Oh, I just want a picture of Kim Jong-un, but not Kim Jong-il." No, that's considered disrespectful. You have to take a picture of the whole statue. If you print a newspaper, the newspapers, the North Korean newspapers, you cannot fold the newspaper if it's folding with an image of the leader of the country, Kim Jong-un. That's considered disrespectful. And they take that very seriously, apparently. Very seriously. Like arresting you seriously. Not just like, hey, pull out your newspaper. That's not nice. Make the picture. No, they're like, come on, going to jail. And it is almost like a cult religion in that sense. Not to say a cult, but a religion in that sense. Like Kim, the leader of the country, the Kim Jong-un and his father, and the father of the country. I forget their names. Kim Jong-il, and then I forget there was a guy before him, but I forget his name, who helped found North Korea. But anyways, they've written all these books. They've done everything. If you listen to the story from the state media, or these guys have done everything. They've written every book. They've come up with every great idea. They've had every success in the world. They're geniuses. They're absolute geniuses. I mentioned the Nazis. They even created their own kind of Christian church, which, they said it was a Christian church, but it was all about praising Hitler. Like on December 25th, instead of celebrating supposedly the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, they were actually celebrating the birth of Adolf Hitler and talking about him. So they set up their own little church to propagate their views of the National Socialist Workers' Party. So yeah, there can be overlap sometimes where political groups, in this case, can take over, can almost become religious in a way, or quasi-religious. But it's only because we recognize religion that I think we recognize that. We know it's a political party. We know it's politics, that Kim Jong-un is the leader of North Korea. Some would say a dictator. He's not a god. But what some North Koreans think he is, or treat him like that. And that aspect of it, I can say, is not political. If they're praying to him as a god, like he's more than human, then I know immediately, okay, that's not we've left the realm of politics here. We're into something else, which we could call, in this case, religious. Or call it supernatural, or call it whatever you want. Spiritual. Okay. So, let's see where we are there. Okay. I'll leave it here, and I'll come back to it next week. Start talking about some of the words that are used and get to our definition. God bless you all. Good to see you.
Again.
You too. Thanks, miss. Have a good day.